Augie, how important is this game at the start of the season? Can we say it's a Game 5 title decider?
Well, no, we can't say it's a title decider.
Exactly. What is it then?
Yeah, it's a game that will show us it will show us whether Arsenal are ready to challenge City for the title. Now, I know they've run close in the last 2 seasons, but they haven't actually topped them. So they have a terrible record at the Etihad. I know they put that kind of to rest a little bit by getting a 0-0 draw last season, but if Arsenal are going to make a real statement about their title chances, they have to win at the Etihad because City are top of the league already. Every point counts in terms of, every point they drop is going to be crucial. So Arsenal really have to win. So I think that's the issue. I think as early as it is, I don't think a draw does Arsenal any favours because they'll still be behind City. So they have to win. But, over the years that we've seen title challengers go close a couple of times, then they really kind of show their credentials by beating the team that's at the top. And maybe we're at that point where the balance of power shifts. I don't think it is yet, but I think if Arsenal win, then that's a good sign that it might be.
Craig, how different are Arsenal going to the Etihad without Martin Odegaard?
Well, there's no doubt there's a little edge comes off from what he gives them, but as Mark said, this is a good potential statement to make off the back of a North London derby where they didn't have Rice or Odegaard. Rice is obviously back, but if you can defeat Tottenham, who've had their struggles at the start of the season, and you can then go to City and win, then that's a statement for the rest of the squad. We've been talking about this on the FC show. Look, during any given season, you're going to get suspensions and injuries, and it's how you cope with that. Now, that might be to squad players, it might be to key players, like they've had already. And I think if you can pull off the big wins in the big games when you're shuffling your squad around a little bit, that does wonders for the dressing room. So I'd like to see Arsenal be a bit more front-footed than they were last season. And the game up there, it was towards the end of the season. They kind of played for a draw. They got a draw. Let's be honest, ultimately it wasn't enough because they didn't win the league. So maybe they regret it not going for that a little bit more. And I'm not saying just go toe-to-toe with City, but I think they're more than good enough at times to do that. And let's not forget, when Liverpool were having their great success, Champions League wins, winning the league, unless somebody's going to correct me, I don't know. Whenever they went to the Etihad, they might not always have won, but they didn't take a backward step. They did not take a backward step. And that kind of sometimes lays a marker down. But I personally think they can cope without Odegaard for whatever period it is he's out. And it looks like it's going to be a little longer than first expected.
LME, both games last season were cagey. Martinelli late on at the Emirates and a goalless draw, as Craig and Mark were mentioning, in March. A point's a good result for Arsenal on the road. So what's to suggest that their tactics aren't going to be any different to what they were back in March?
Yeah, they're not. And you actually can go even sooner than that, MD, by looking at what happened at the North London derby and even the game against Atalanta in the Champions League. Like, here's the thing about Arsenal this season for me. They've been strong. They've shown some resiliency. We saw it against Tottenham. We saw it against Villa, a very strong win there. But they haven't been spectacular. But that's okay. They've been able to get the job done. Now, here's the key, and I'm glad that you mentioned last season, because the thing about last season was, and it goes back to the original question that you asked, which in my opinion, yes, it's early in the season and there's a lot of football to be played. But here's the important part. Last season, Man City won by 2 points over Arsenal, and they didn't beat Arsenal in neither game. They lost and they drew. Against Liverpool, the third place team, they drew both matches. Against Villa, they won and lost. So there was only one win for Man City in the top 4 in that race, and still they won the Premier League. My point being that in these situations, when Arsenal has to go to the Etihad, they have to try at the very least get a result out of something, a draw or a victory. I know that it's early, but those fine margins are going to count in the long extreme of things. And so to me, I think that it's important to understand that where Arsenal are right now, which obviously early in the season, they're still trying to figure themselves out. There's no Martin Odegaard, Declan Rice coming back from suspension, just like Craig said, right? So I think that you're going to see the same strategy that you saw Arteta do against Tottenham in the North London derby, and the same strategy that you saw last season at the Etihad, because it wasn't a great game. But at the very least, just like Craig said, they went out there and they showed something. So it's going to be a very sticky game. I'm not expecting a fun one here. I'm expecting a sticky game. And if Arsenal can come out of the Etihad with at least a point, that's a win for them, I think.
Okay, anything to both games in midweek for Arsenal and Manchester City in the Champions League, goalless draws, and neither really at their best.
Yeah, they were both very kind of, I won't say they were flat games, but they were hard to gauge. I think obviously City had the tougher game. Inter at home was a tougher game than, Atalanta, to be fair, are a good team. So maybe I'm being a bit wrong there. But I just thought that, again, Arsenal had that kind of, it's an Achilles heel, I think, where they don't go for it. When it's a really tough game, they don't go for it as much as they could do. They're not on the front foot. They're a team that will try and sit back and take the chance in those situations. I think if you're going to win a title or a cup, you have to be brave at times. And I think Arsenal are a brave team, but you start being brave against, Southampton, Fulham, etc. But you've got to be brave against Man City. They weren't brave last season at the Etihad. They were at the Emirates when they beat them. So I think this is a game where Arsenal have to really put it on the line and say, we can beat Man City, because they're not going to win the title by going to these tough away grounds and settling for a point. They have to go and win. They have to go and win. They have to go and put a marker down. But did you see anything in these midweek games? I'm not too sure. I don't know. I think, obviously David Raya showed again that he can save a penalty. But no, I don't think the game showed as much, to be honest.
Craig, January 2015, Cazorla and Giroud were the goal scorers. That was the last time Arsenal won at the Etihad. In your career, did you have grounds that you loved going to or didn't like going to, had a good or a bad record? And I suppose this weekend's a good time to put that record right for Arsenal.
Well, I didn't like going to St Etienne in France, which is not really helpful for this conversation, is it? Because I gave a penalty away in a friendly there when on a trip a fella called Zidane up, and then I got sent off there in the World Cup about 8 months later. So I'm refusing to ever go back to that ground. But there's there's always little places. I always love going to Old Trafford because Chelsea had a pretty good record there, even back in the 90s. Beat them and got a draw, beat them up there, and then Luca Vialli, the late Luca Vialli, scored up there against Peter Schmeichel when we beat them. Michael Duberry got the other. We always did a good record there. Big pitch, they'd let you play. But yeah, there are grounds where but listen, it's a new squad, isn't it? It's a different squad. That 10 years ago shouldn't really matter to what happens now. I just think the big thing is like 5 points it's quite a hurdle, isn't it, if City were to win, even this early in the season. There's no season-defining result here, but 5 points is a bit of a hurdle even after 5 games, because you slip up maybe over the next couple of weeks, drop the odd point and get a draw, and City keep steamroller, and then that gap continues to grow, and then you're starting to look at, you're just relying on what they do almost rather than what you do. And so I think it is important that Arsenal at least get something out of this game, because as I say, 5 points against a team like City, it's not insurmountable. Maybe with 5 games to go, you're up the creek without a paddle, but not 5 games in. But it's just going to deflate the place if they get that little gap. And they've looked sharp, City, at times, not in midweek as Oggy said they didn't, but I'm thinking back to the West Ham game. I think that's the sharpest I've seen them this season, the way they moved the ball. Obviously, Haaland was on fire. De Bruyne looked sharp. So they've looked at times really, really sharp. And I agree, Arsenal have not. They've just not looked quite as sharp as last season, but they've gotten pretty much most of the results that they needed. But they need to sharpen their game up. There is no doubt about that.
LME, right now, Cristiano Ronaldo's the fastest player to 100 goals. Erling Haaland had the opportunity in midweek to eclipse him, didn't take it, but has a chance to equal him against Arsenal. Is he unplayable, Erling Haaland?
Yes, I think that there's a few things that are in his favor this season, which obviously we'll talk about in the second component of this show. One of them being the fact that he had a great summer to rehabilitate, and we're seeing the fruits of that labor, or that rest, so to speak, right now. Erling Haaland is an unbelievable centre forward, but I think that what Internazionale showed midweek, and also what Arsenal showed last season as well, is that, and Real Madrid as well in the Champions League, is that you can defend against them as long as you understand what you need to do at the back, whether that's a zonal type of idea or trying to mark him like Inter did, a 3-man center back line to try and make sure that you knew exactly where Erling Haaland was, and at the same time nullify, right, the options that he gets. When he plays against teams that don't have that plan, don't have that strategy, it's all over. And I think Arsenal, who have a great defensive record last season, they look good right now. They have one of the best partnerships in the game. Of course, I think they know what they want to do, and they're going to make it sticky, like I said before, like last season. I wouldn't be surprised if Erling Haaland doesn't score in this game either. But he is feeling much better than last season, and he's looking tremendous. And he's going to obviously reach those 100 goals. It's just a matter of when. But it's not just about, just one more thing. It's not just about Erling Haaland. It's about what happens around him when Man City enter that final third. And obviously Kevin De Bruyne is a major factor towards that.
One of the things some people talk about, and it amazes me, is, why at times, not always, at times he's found it a little bit more difficult in the Champions League. Well, shiver me timbers. I mean, it's the Champions League. And then have you seen the teams from in the bottom half of the Premier League? Have you seen the defenders? Even for all the millions some of these teams spend, he bullies them. They're just not good enough, some of them. He's going to bully Everton defenders. He's going to bully all these teams down the bottom that were promoted, and some of the other guff down there. And guess what? In the Champions League, not everybody's a brilliant team, but they're better defenders. And so it is tough, like it was in midweek. Obviously, Inter is a different scenario. Inter are one of the best defensive teams around Europe. There's no doubt about that. They were Serie A winners last year. They were in the Champions League the year before, and the final made it difficult for Haaland and for City. But there's a reason why he flat trap bullies a lot of these teams in the Premier League, because the defenders just can't handle him. But it is a step up into the Champions League, and it does become more difficult. And I think we saw that with the Inter defenders in midweek, who I thought did a great job defensively all round.
Just give you some team news for this one, according to the respective coaches. Pep Guardiola confirming that Kevin De Bruyne could be involved despite being replaced at halftime in midweek. And for Arsenal, the likes of Marino and others still out injured. Of course, Martin Odegaard, but Declan Rice returns after suspension. So, prediction time. Craig, what do you think about this one?
I'm going to go with the same prediction that I've given for the show tonight, because they're making me work twice in one day, and it's like it's a lot. I feel stressed and tired already. But I'm going to
that golf game of yours, that handicap, you're going to struggle to get that down from 3.8.
Well, actually, it wasn't golf today. It was dog walking, which is also very stressful because there's 3 of them, and they take me for a walk. So I've gone for a 1-1. I think Arsenal will be a little bit more coy, so I've gone for a 1-1.
Okay.
I just feel for Craig working twice in one day. He's going to be going on strike soon or talking about it.
Okay, we'll get to that. Okay, we'll get to that in the other segment.
Yeah. Listen, I think City will win. I was at Tottenham last Sunday, and Arsenal got the win, and Tottenham weren't great. I can't put my finger on what it is, but there's something at Arsenal. I think there's something missing. I don't know whether it's a bit of seniority, a bit of that kind of been there, done it mentality that City have got. And you can't really get that until you've been there and done it. But Arsenal have knocked on the door quite a lot now, and they haven't quite blown it down. And let's not forget, they haven't won anything under Mikel Arteta since an FA Cup success during the COVID time. So the progress is great, but there's an element of just getting a little bit, everyone, not getting carried away with Arsenal, but they are deservedly hyped up and talked about, but they have to win something. And I think they just lack a little bit of that winning ruthlessness. The one play that I thought has added to that, I saw Timber at Tottenham last week, and Timber's brought a bit of that angriness, that bit of toughness, but they need that more of that, and I think City have got that all over the place. And I just think City will win this game. I think they might win 2-0.
That was a Janusz Mihalik answer of what's your prediction? But we got there in the end. So City 2-0, a 1-1 draw for Craig. LME, what you got?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a City win as well. I'm with Augie here. And partly it's because last season, even though it was a draw at the Etihad, like when you look at the statistics, like Arsenal only had 15 touches inside the box, 6 shots, which was the lowest since 2021. Man City had 40, and they were going all at it, and it just didn't happen. I think Man City are looking sharper at the beginning of the season. I've said that Arsenal are looking steady, but not spectacular right now, and I think that's going to be shown on Sunday. It's not going to be a good game in terms of entertainment, but I see City winning perhaps 1-0.